students, today we have Proposition 48, Book 1, Proposition 48. If there be a triangle and the square on one of the sides is equal to the squares on the other two sides, the square on one of the lines plus the square on the other line, if the square on one line equals the squares on the other two lines added together, that line subtends a right angle in that triangle. Here we have our triangle. It's given that the square on one of the sides is equal to the squares on the other two sides added together. Thus, it is required to prove that this angle, which this side subtends, the one that has the big square equal to the other two little squares, that this side subtends this angle being right. That this side subtends a right angle. That is to say, this side is going to be right. Let us prove that, okay? We know from our bag of tricks that we can, given a line, we can draw a line perpendicular to that line, okay? Let's do that. We also know from our bag of tricks or bag of knowledge that given a big line, a large line, we can cut it equal to the lesser. Let's do that. Let's say this goes way out to here and we cut it. Equal to the lesser. Great. Now we have our line here. Let's connect these 2 points, the end point and the end point, with a straight line. Okay, let's see, go ahead and use red. Okay? Now, look at this. We have this, two triangles here, 1, 2. This side is equal to this side, and this side is equal to this side, okay? This blue line is shared by this triangle and this triangle. But so this is equal to this, and this is equal to this. Therefore, the square on this is equal to the square on this, and the square on this is equal to the square on this. Okay? So, square on this plus the square on this is equal to the square on this plus the square on this. But it was given that the square on this plus the square on this is equal to the square on this. So two things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. If the square on this is equal to the square on this plus the square on this, and the square on this plus the square on this is equal to the square on this plus the square on this, the square on this is necessarily equal to the square on this plus the square on this. Okay? Now remember, we drew this angle right. Okay? So here we have a right triangle. We know from the previous proposition that in a right angle triangle, the square on the hypotenuse, the line subtending the right angle, is equal to the square on the other two sides. So the square on this line is equal to the square on this line plus the square on this line. But we saw that the square on this line is also equal to the square on this line plus the square on this line. Two things equal to the same things are equal to each other. Therefore, the square on this is equal to the square on this. The square on this line is equal to the square on this line. Well, if the squares are equal, the lines are equal. So this line is equal to this line. Great. Now we have two triangles such that two sides are equal to two sides and the base equal to the base. That is to say, we have side, side, side. We know in side, side, side that the triangles are equal and the remaining angles are equal, namely those which are subtended by the equal sides. Okay, so just for the sake of knowing, this little angle, because it's subtended by this line, is going to be equal to this little angle. And this little angle is going to be equal to this little angle because they're subtended by equal sides. Now look at this. These two sides subtend these angles. So this angle here is equal to this angle. But this angle was drawn right. If these are equal and this is right, this is also a right angle. Therefore we see that if there be a triangle such that the square on one side of the lines is equal to the square on the other two sides added together, the squares, that line, which has the big square, subtends a right angle. Quod erat demonstrandum. Thank you very much. We're about to start book 2. I'm going to give you a lesson on how to do book 2 in the next video, and then we'll do propositions 1 and 2 of book 2. Very proud of you for getting through the 48 propositions of book 1 of Euclid. Bye-bye.